just didn't fucking sit well with me, so we finally trimmed it down to get it up, and nobody said, the record company said, forget it, this was not even going to get past it.
Can you tell what he's saying there? Because I can't, and I was there. I am very, very, very extremely grateful to be able to say that I was in attendance at the show you just saw a clip from. I'm Sabby Reyes Kulkarni, the apostate music journalist, and this is FeedbackDef.
Hey! Chichers! Lipstick salon!
If you follow the channel, you might know, you may have seen that back in May, I posted a video in response to the announcement that Aerosmith guitarist Joe Perry would be doing a short run of 8 shows in North America with a new lineup of his revived Joe Perry project, which is the his like solo vehicle. And this lineup, superstar lineup, would include Black Crowes frontman Chris Robinson, Robert DeLeo, bassist and in a lot of ways the driving force behind Stone Temple Pilots drummer Eric Kretz, and Aerosmith guitarist Brad Whitford, as well as Buck Johnson, who has done backing vocals in Aerosmith, keyboards and backing vocals in Aerosmith, and has played with Joe Perry in the Hollywood Vampires and previous, like sort of recent-ish touring incarnations of the Joe Perry project. And I said in that video, come hell or high water, I am getting to that show. So fast forward to August. The show I decided to go to is the closest one to me. It was at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York, originally scheduled for Saturday, August 23rd. Port Chester is about 45 minutes northeast of New York City, getting towards Connecticut. I have 2 close friends who live near there, who have raved about that venue. I had never been there before, so it was on my bucket list. And I had also interviewed David Crosby shortly before his death. He had just put out a live album DVD titled Live at the Capitol Theater. I believe it was like a really straightforward title. He also raved about that place. Chris Robinson at the show also said, I told these guys, because I've played here many times, you guys are going to love the Cap.
I like this place. I can't believe I never played here before. I just played here. I think you own part of it.
I've played here many times. I told everyone, you're gonna fucking love the Cap. You're gonna fucking love the Cap.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I did love the Cap. I was very pleased with like the whole ambiance. It's a venue with its own culture. The staff were really, really, really cool. I mean, even when I called on the phone before leaving New York City to take Metro North to get there, just the vibe was awesome all up and down in that place. It's got a real identity, and it's in a real town too. Like sits wedged in this town in this really, really, really cool way. So I decided to leave where I live, Rochester, New York, to get on an Amtrak train heading to New York City on the chance that I might be able to get into the show, because I was like, I have to try. I did not have a ticket. I was not on the guest list. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take the leap and see what happens. I technically had enough money to get back home, but you spend even a few hours in New York and you start burning through funds. And the good thing was, a friend of mine from here ended up being in the city at the same time. She was like, oh, you can ride back with us. So I posted a video from the train. I'm doing this. Let's see what happens. I didn't even have a place to stay lined up yet at that point, I don't think. And away we went. So shortly after posting the video, I find out that the show that night is postponed, which did not bode well. We're not sure what's going on, that the show that I'm supposed to go to is possibly not on. So I'm like, oh, great. Here I am on the train, and who knows what's going to happen. Needless to say, I got into the show. The show happened, and I got in. And I have several people to thank for that. There's a friend of the show, His name is Jay. Saw the video of me from the train and like decided to make a donation that was huge. Thank you, Jay. That was like really like very, very heartwarming. And I was like, wow, the universe is on my side. But then it's an extra added element when it's a friend and a follower of the show. And they're like, man, I believe in what you're doing. So thank you there. A million thanks there. Also to the folks at SRO PR, my mom, my oldest friend, who I've known since first grade, Lewis, and the musician-songwriter extraordinaire, Bob Galkey, all helped in some way, shape, or form, and so did the co-check lady at the Capitol Theater. So thank you all. And thanks to you folks as well for watching and taking an interest. If you like what I'm laying down, I'd really love it if you hit the subscribe button, the like, and the notification button, and also check out other videos. If this resonates with you, then there's a likelihood that there's other stuff on the channel that will be to your interest as well. So, long story short, I thought the show was excellent. I would give it an 8.5 to 9, somewhere in there, out of 10 stars. I wouldn't say I was blown away from start to finish. I wouldn't even necessarily say it was one of the best shows I've ever been to, or like one of the most, riveting shows I've ever been to, but it was damn good. And so much so that I cried 5 separate times throughout this show. And I'm not talking about just getting a little choked up where you get flooded with emotions and you remember what a song meant to you, right? This was like full tears streaming down my cheeks. Some of it had to do with kind of the ordeal of getting there, of like, oh, all of a sudden this is hanging in the balance. We don't know if this is even happening. We don't know if there's even going to be a show to try to get into. And it was odd because I was notified that I was on the guest list before it was even official that the show was back on. And then the show was back on, but rescheduled for 4 days later, which meant I had to extend my visit. And then my free ride back home was leaving that morning. So I was like, okay, you're kind of on your own now. So anyway, it all worked out. I was there. I was like, man, I've really gone through kind of an odyssey to get in here, and I'm here. But it was really, really the music itself. And, I got to be honest, I was surprised. As much as I was like, oh my God, I got to see this show. I got to see this show. This is a show. I'm going to break my rule of like not, I don't usually road trip to see shows. I was like, no, I have to. As much as I love Aerosmith, as much as I love the Black Crowes and love Stone Temple Pilots, I didn't expect to cry, much less 5 times. So let's get into that. Why was this so important to me? Why was this one of those shows that I had X'd on my calendar and I was like, I can't miss this. I have to at least make an attempt. Well, I love all 3 of these bands. I would say they are all 3 among my favorite bands. And I also sensed that this was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see all these people on the same stage. And that, if you miss this, there wasn't really going to be another shot. If I'm being 100% honest, as much as I love Aerosmith, I wouldn't have gone to see Joe Perry and Brad Whitford. I would have gone to see them in the city I live in, but I definitely would not have traveled to see them. But to see that combination of elements all rolled into one, there just seemed to be so much potential for magic there. And it turned out to be the case. Now, there were several things that surprised me. Well, let me back up for a second. Let me back up and put into context why all 3 of these bands mean so much. First of all, I would say that Rocks, Aerosmith's classic 4th album from 1976, for my money, is the greatest American rock album of all time. And I don't like saying things like that, definitive declarations. There's so many examples, right, that you can choose from. Like, why is that one greater than someone else? I would never argue with you about this or somebody, but again, for my money, if I have to think of the one single most towering achievement in the history of American rock. It is that album. And, you know, I first heard it when I was 15, and it just like swept me off my feet. I don't even love every song on it equally either, which is kind of remarkable. It's a case where like the 2 songs out of 9 that I don't quite love as much, or I don't love as much, if I hear them out of context, I'm like, wow, that's a great song. But the rest of it is so powerful for me that it just, like I said, it has this amazing effect. I think it is by far the most majestic offering in the entire Aerosmith catalog. I think there's like nothing. It's one of those cases of like, you can hear on a record when everything clicks into high gear for a band. Everything comes together and they just hit their stride in this really, really, really powerful way. Similarly, I think the Black Crowes, for a 4-album run by their classic lineup from 1992 to, I believe, 97 or so. They had a classic 6-piece lineup that did 3 official records and then ultimately released another one that had been shelved, and then a sort of halfway done version, alternate version of one of the 3 official records. So it's like 4.5 records sort of that they put out. I think they are the greatest American rock band of that generation. They're sort of like a generation and a half behind Aerosmith in the timeline. And then Stone Temple Pilots, who I have loved since the first time I heard Plush on MTV. But I thought at the time that I first heard them, I thought they were like rip-off artists. I thought they were like a corporate sort of grunge imitation, cynical, like, let's, you know, dial in all these styles that are popular now in the, like, you know, heavy guitar rock, alt grunge, you know, thing. Let's concoct this band that can do that and hit all those colors. I thought they were very cynical. I thought they were very corporate at that time. Even though I loved them, I was like, I love this song Plush, but it's clearly, to my ear, a Pearl Jam ripoff. This is what I'm thinking at the time, right? By their 3rd album, I had a completely different view of them. I was like, whoa, okay, this band, like, I take very seriously now. And Robert DeLeo is really the primary reason behind that. He's a really profound musician. He's into bossa nova. He's into big band jazz. He's into 70s soft rock, much more so than what their initial sound, you know, their grungy, heavy, muscular riff thing would have indicated. So there's a real depth. I mean, he's into ragtime, right? He was explaining to Rick Beato, I believe, that the chords in the song Plush were kind of like a ragtime figure. Between 1996, STP's 3rd album, Tiny Music, where I was like, whoa, these guys are for real, and 2020, I loved Stone Temple Pilots right out of the gate, but somewhere in between there, they just elevated to becoming one of my all-time favorite bands. Actually, it was in 2020 because I was listening to them a ton that year. And they had just put out an acoustic record named Perdita, which I think very, very, very highly of. I've been meaning to do an STP album ranking, so stay tuned for that. So you throw all these people together, and again, like I said, I thought the potential for magic was quite high, and fleeting magic. Like, this would just be a comet that, you know, you could catch at one of these shows, and then who knows what the future holds. And I mean, even one of the shows got canceled, right? So that just tells you right there. So, okay, things that surprised me, though, off the bat. So I go with all these expectations. I'm in the venue. I'm like, great. I'll start with some of the more disappointing aspects first. Robert DeLeo, who is, to me, like the musician of everybody on stage that I would put on the highest plane and the deepest musician of anybody up there. I was really, really, really surprised. I've seen Stone Temple Pilots before, and I think the world of this guy as a musical force unto himself. I believe it was Joe Perry. I remember a quote from either Joe Perry or Steven Tyler from the 90s who said, "In another life, you can imagine Robert DeLeo sitting at the piano at the Cotton Club or something." Like, that's how deep his muse is. And I always remembered that quote. I've never been able to find it. I haven't been able to dig it up online. I have no idea where I read it. It might have been Rolling Stone or something like that, or a guitar magazine, or even a bass player magazine. But it stuck in my memory, and I think it's absolutely true. I was really, really struck that I didn't feel his like flexibility or breadth or versatility as a musician in this context. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think he failed to serve the music, but his playing didn't have as much dimension as I expected, particularly in doing Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith's lines. I mean, I was really, really happy to see him, but that surprised me. Also, Brad Whitford, I thought, had a thin guitar tone that was way too easily overpowered by Joe Perry's. I thought that really, really, really disappointed me, or I think is really, really, really unfortunate. Perry had like 7 cabinets. I mean, he had like 3 Fender Twins stacked and like 4 cabinets to the right of that. And Brad Whitford had 2, and he has a much less muscular attack to his playing. But you could compensate for that. You could have given him more cabinets for one, and you could have mixed him so that his tone rivaled Joe's and really fleshed things out. So I thought that was a little bit like, why would you bring this guy out and not really give him room to... I mean, they gave him room to shine because he did have solos. But in terms of his rhythm playing and his arpeggios, it could have been a lot fuller, and it really should have been. Now, I don't know whether that's his own choice or not. I don't know whether that's what he prefers, but as a front of house sound guy, I'm not saying I am, but I'm saying from the point of view of the front of house sound guy, you've got to do something to compensate for that. There's really no reason to have Joe shine at Whitford's expense. That's totally unnecessary. The more the rhythm guitar player shines, the more the lead guitar player shines. And certainly that's the way it is, I believe, on Aerosmith's records, because if you look at the distribution of their parts, and I started digging into that more recently, there's a lot of like back and forth. They trade leads quite a bit. So I wish, like, whatever Jack Douglas was hearing when he produced Rocks, I wish somebody would take that and try to recreate that at these shows. There's really no need to have this guy sound thinner and smaller in the mix. Okay, so pleasant surprises, though. I had a sense that when Eric Kretz had to cancel and had to drop out at the last minute due to a family emergency, I had a sense, I love Eric Kretz's playing, and it took me a long time to appreciate it. A lot like Ringo Starr. I had often thought of him as the weak link in Stone Temple Pilots. I thought he's sluggish. He's one-dimensional. This was my initial feeling on his playing way back in the early 90s. Over the years, I've really come to appreciate how indispensable he is to the entire, everything that's on the table in STP. But I was like, at first I was like, oh, that's a bummer. That's such a bummer. I wanted to see half of STP with almost half of Aerosmith, kind of a thing. But I also had a feeling, I wonder if this might end up being a little more swinging and a little more lively and a little more flexible with a different drummer behind the kit. That did end up being the case. I mean, I haven't heard any rehearsals or anything with Eric Kretz, so I don't know what it would have sounded like. But I feel like Jason Sutter who's played with Cher, Chris Cornell, Smash Mouth. He has also played with Joe Perry in the past, Marilyn Manson as well. He just had this real drive to him and a limber quality to his drums that I thought really enlivened things rather beautifully. Along those lines, Buck Johnson, man, it was really cool to have these high-pitched vocal harmonies fleshing everything out in a way that I thought was really, really, really added something. So those were two completely unexpected things that I was like, wow. Now, as you can see from the clip I played, Joe Perry, there's a reason why he doesn't talk much. I mean, he just mumbled his way. There was like little stage raps he was doing, talking to the crowd, and I could catch, every third word here and there. There were some things I sort of understood. There's some things I've watched somebody's bootleg video of the whole show, and I still don't understand what the hell he's saying. I'm like, man, you belong, you need to stay away from the microphone. But he did not mumble when it came to his guitar work. I was really, really shocked at what great playing shape this guy's in. I mean, there was so much definition and presence and assertiveness and just fullness to his playing, and like he's really sharp. It's kind of like the equivalent of somebody who's like really old but still got everything up here. Man, I just was knocked out. It's like I did not expect him to sound that young, I guess, or that in shape playing wise. Likewise, Chris Robinson. This didn't really surprise me. Like I was hoping that the marriage of his voice with a lot of this Aerosmith material would produce sparks. But I was stunned at how just, number one, he's an amazing singing shape. Yeah, towards the end, like some of his phrases, he would sort of lose breath a little bit, but he sounds incredible. And his approach to this material was, for me, the most appealing thing about this entire experience. Seeing him transmute really like 6 or 7 other vocalists, because they did a bunch of material from Joe Perry project, or not a bunch. They did a bunch of Aerosmith material, a couple of STP tunes. Robert Plant, he sang a song that had been originally sung by Terry Reid.
Yeah. Terry Reid was the guy that Jimmy Page wanted to be in Led Zeppelin.
So you got Chris Robinson doing this like sort of review of these 7 different vocalists, 6 or 7, and just the way he applied his approach, it was kind of like, oh, you're used to having this one dish from a certain cuisine, but then you try it Turkish style or something instead of like Indian or something like that. It was like slightly turned on its head. These phrases that you know from these classic songs, he would approach them slightly differently, but he filled it in so well. And I gotta say, this might be a little strong or sound a little strong, but I wonder if he and Joe Perry aren't musical soulmates. And I don't know how long this thing is going to last. And if you read former Black Crowes drummer Steve Gorman's book, his memoir, mostly on the Crowes, he describes Chris Robinson as a really volatile character who, from Gorman's point of view, had something to do with the Black Crowes and Jimmy Page thing falling apart. Again, that's Gorman's side of it. And I'm just like watching this show and I'm like, man, don't fuck this up. He seemed really in great spirits, really happy to be there. Clearly, these guys respect the hell out of Joe Perry, and with good reason. But I feel like the two of them together can make something so special, because I watched it and I hope it continues. There were a couple of tunes that they played, Aerosmith tunes, really obvious Aerosmith tunes, Mama Kin and Walk This Way, which I thought, why would you Why would you need to do this? I mean, they closed the show with an encore of Walk This Way. And I'm thinking, is there anybody in this building that would be disappointed if they played something like Adam's Apple or Round and Round or even Big 10-inch Record or even Sweet Emotion, right? Songs like that. I probably would have been beside myself or like passed out from delirious euphoria if they had played the song Cheesecake from Night in the Ruts. But that aside, they also I should say play the two Black Crowes tunes they played were really, really obvious. Jealous Again and Twice as Hard. Thankfully they didn't play Hard to Handle. That would have been the most obvious. Okay, but that aside, I can't complain at all about this set list. They played I'm going to count here. Played, I think, 6 Aerosmith deep cuts. My Fist Your Face, Get the Let Out, Combination, Get It Up, Bright Light Fright, and Chip Away the Stone, or Chip Away at the Stone. I just can't complain. I looked it up, and I guess Aerosmith hadn't played Get the Let Out since like 2003 or something. I would have thought they had played it more. That is quite a few deep cuts. The deep cuts to obvious songs ratio was very healthy. I was surprised they didn't play more from those 3 Joe Perry Project albums, but we got to hear Let the Music Do the Talking, which was originally sung by Ralph Morman, and East Coast, West Coast, I think it's called, which was originally sung by Charlie Farron. So like I said, Chris Robinson had quite a few different singers to whose shoes he was filling. And then, of course, there were the STP songs. So I'm a real stickler. In fact, I'll go further and say I'm a total, like insufferable Nazi about not knowing setlist spoilers before I go to a show. But Robert DeLeo, posting on his Instagram all these clips, kept giving away all these songs. You know, like he posted a clip of them doing Last Child by Aerosmith. He posted a clip of them doing Vaseline, and I'm like, dude, you're killing me here. Like, and it's like, okay, stop checking the Instagram. But the curiosity was getting to me. So at one point in the show, they do a really like subdued, bluesy, ballad-ish interpretation of STP's Interstate Love Song. And they turned it into like the sister song of Thorn in My Pride by the Black Crowes. They completely like reinvented the song in this totally beautiful, very poignant way. And I thought, oh, I guess they're not going to do Vaseline tonight because they just did this song. And then they did. And, there's just the song after song after song of like this rush of feelings of all these songs that mean so much to me. The first time I cried was during Get the Let Out, which there's one moment on that song that to me is like the high pinnacle of the album Rocks. And I could sing it now, but it's like, oh, what you got there cooking? The song takes a turn with this unexpected, like kind of dark chord that just kind of like floods the stereo field. And man, when they did that at the show, like tears just started streaming down my cheeks. And then it started again during Combination, which is one of probably my favorite Aerosmith song. Again during Vaseline. Again during Last Child. And I forgot what the other time was, but I counted 5 times. I was like, whoa. Again, I was not expecting that. I wasn't expecting to cry at all, much less this many times. But this is how much this show was crammed with these moments for me that were stirring up so much from my formative years as a listener. It was really, really, really totally worth it. Totally worth going to. I mean, again, I didn't pay to get in. So I can't say would it have been worth like $200 to spend. I can't afford that kind of budget anyway. And even if I could, how many shows would be worth that much to me that had, I would go see 4 bands for $200. I wouldn't go see one, right? Like no matter who's in the band. So, but it was worth all of the effort and uncertainty and risk that was involved. I've often said this. I've always said this. I have always had a difficult time like discerning what the guitars in Aerosmith do, which might sound strange because like, okay, what's the big deal? It's guitar licks and riffs and leads, like, and they play rock. Like, what's so mysterious about it? There's always been something that for me is kind of hard for me to properly picture clearly in with my ears, or I was gonna say in my mind's eye. I mean, yes, there's certain licks of theirs I can sing or hum out loud, but I've never fully understood what they do. There are many moments throughout their catalog where Joe Perry and Brad Whitford or will just kind of create these clouds of guitar that just sound like clouds to me, like just kind of overlapping and just filling the music up. They don't feel like traditional riffs or blues progressions or licks to me. They just create these like giant swells of atmosphere. And for me, a lot of the time, what my ears sort of attached to is the train track of the rhythm section and the vocals. To me is the focal point of a lot of their music for me, and then the guitars just kind of fill everything in. And so I was really, really curious to study how Perry and Whitford play off of one another to see if I would have a deeper understanding. And I gotta say, I don't think I do. I think I have a little bit more. I like obviously for a live show, they have to kind of simplify their approach, right? And there were many sections where it's like, okay, that guy's playing a lead, and okay, that guy's playing this, this arpeggiated chord. Okay, I get it, right? But it made me want to go back and listen to the records more to try to get a handle on that sensation that I've always had, where it's like, wow, they're just these like big plumes of sound that these guys create, and I'm looking forward to diving into the mystery. I don't think I'll solve it, but in getting to know each of their styles more, because I do think they together had this really unconventional approach, and there's more to their playing than just, like I said, progressions, licks, riffs, leads, solos. There's a real moodiness to what they do together, to the atmospheres that they can conjure, that I think is really, really, really quite stunning and sets them apart from, like, say, the Rolling Stones or something like that, or any other, classic rock band. And I guess in retrospect, I'm not surprised that so much feeling, was stirred up, because I discovered Aerosmith when I was about 12 or 13. There was a UHF band channel in the New York City area named U68. And I've talked about this before, but U68 would play these half-hour blocks of videos, and they were pre-recorded. So once you saw one or two videos, you knew which block you were going to get if you watched enough. And I think the first thing I ever saw by Aerosmith was the video for Lightning Strikes, which is from the album Rock in a Hard Place, which Joe Perry and Brad Whitford did not play on. But I was so young and I didn't know anything about them at all. So I didn't have that hang up of like, oh, I'm attached to this band and now here's this alternate lineup, and is this the real Aerosmith? I was just like absorbing it all. and they showed the video for Lightning Strikes. They also showed videos from the album Night in the Ruts, which remains one of my favorite Aerosmith albums. It's probably my second or third favorite album by them. And it also ranks highly on Joe Perry's list as well. He said it in his memoir. But he wasn't in the videos for that. He had already quit by the time the album was released. So Jimmy Crespo was in the videos for that. Music videos were not even meant for public consumption when those videos were made. They were called commercials back then. They were for like industry insiders. I don't really understand how that was supposed to work. I guess you got people in a boardroom and showed them, pulled a screen down, showed them a screener of Aerosmith playing in a room and decided on singles or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess it would have already been decided. And why would a record company have spent money on that? I don't know how any of that worked. But I know that U68 got their hands on these. They would show those as well. And then they would show the video for the Aerosmith version of Let the Music Do the Talking, which is the first song and the first single from the reunion album when Perry and Whitford rejoined the band for the album Done with Mirrors, which is, if you ask me, probably, well, I would say it's the last classic that they put out, but I stick with them through Permanent Vacation and Pump, and maybe Get a Grip, and maybe up to Fallen in Love is Hard on the Knees. I like the energy. I love the energy of Permanent Vacation and Pump, but Done with Mirrors is their last really gritty album, really like sort of dirty rock record. But yeah, so they would show the video for Let the Music Do the Talking on U68. So I was exposed as like 12, 13, 14 years old to those songs. And then at a certain point, by the time I was 15, I bought Rocks and then took the cassette with me to visit Southern California. I went on a trip with my dad to visit friends of his in Orange County, and I was riding a bike around with my Walkman, just getting, like I said, swept off my feet, just like my mind blown by Rocks. And so you put all that together, and then you get into the early 90s with STP, the Black Crowes. To me, the song Vaseline will forever be fused with the sensation of summer. To me, it's the ultimate summer song. Like when I hear the word summer, I instantly think of the song Vaseline and the sensation of working at the Olive Garden as a 21-year-old, and just the swirl of that song just filling my memories. I mean, it's the rush of nostalgia is so powerful. I can, it can almost knock me over. And I almost felt like I was going to get knocked over at certain points in this show. So you stir all that up together. What a remarkable, amazing, beautiful experience of a show. I am so happy that I went. I'm so grateful to all the parties I mentioned who helped me get there or be in there in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, that was my experience of that show, and I hope this band keeps playing, or at the very least that Chris Robinson keeps playing with Joe Perry. It would be awesome if they did a record together, if they did more extended touring, if you got to see this configuration of people or something like it, at a town near you. Now, speaking of you, what do you think? Did you go to any of these shows? How curious are you about it? Would you like to see this lineup? Have you seen previous incarnations of the Joe Perry project? How familiar are you with the records, the 3 albums he did? Let the Music Do the Talking. I've Got the Rock and Rolls Again, and then what's the other one called? Oh yeah, Once a Rocker, Always a Rocker. Duh, not a very not much of a stretch of a title, right? What do you think of those records? I am looking forward to diving into them and really, listening to them, like the whole thing from start to finish. The Terry Reid song he did is from an album called Switzerland Manifesto Mark II, whatever that means. But it was a really dark, powerful rock, like sort of heavy rock number that I thought had a lot of atmosphere and mood. But yeah, what do you think of of Joe Perry's solo catalog? What is your favorite Aerosmith stuff? What is the supergroup you would be most like excited to see and have a reaction like, I gotta get to that show? What is the furthest you would travel to see a show? What is the biggest risk you would take? Would you go to a show or would you travel to a city without knowing whether you're even going to be able to get into the show? When was the last time you did something like that? Tell me your concert adventure stories and anything else you can think of, because I love hearing from you. For FeedbackDef, I am Sabby Reyes-Kulkarni, the apostate music journalist. Thanks for hanging with me. Over and out.
Hey, teachers, lift it, salon.